I don't like the concept that every single thing that goes through Congress has to be done exactly on party lines and the other side, because it's so unbelievably toxic. It might be that for some legislation, you have to wheel and deal, you have to negotiate a little bit to get those 60 votes, to get a few votes from the other side. I think that's good, but like, with the amount of partisanship that exists right now, it is just everybody's in lockstep with each other, and it is like impossible to do so, which is so bad. It has to stop, it has to change. Like, geez. For those that don't know in chat, walk us through how the recall election works. If you vote yes to recall him, is there a separate vote then for governor, or how does that work?
Yep. So there's two questions on the ballot. The first one says, should we recall Governor Gavin Newsom? And then the second question has a list of 46 candidates that would replace him if over 50% of people vote yes on the first question. So you don't have to put down something on the second question, but it was a concern for some people. I even had people reaching out to me saying, how do I vote on the second question? These people all suck.
Wait, you're telling me you're not an ardent supporter of Larry Elder?
Well, he didn't win me over. Let's just put it that way. Okay. I wasn't impressed with what I saw.
Gotcha.
But there was a Democrat on there. Did you hear about this kid? He's a 29-year-old YouTube star.
No, what's his name?
His name is Kevin Paffrath, Paffrath. And he's got 1.7 million subs on YouTube. He's a personal finance dude, realtor. And he was our best option for the Democrats, but he was garbo. He put a 52-minute video on his website as if anybody's going to watch an hour-long video to learn about who he is. And one of his top policy positions was to end homelessness in California in 60 days.
Okay.
Just no more homeless people in 60 days. Now, you and I can both imagine what that entails. You know what I mean? That's not a kind approach.
Oh, you don't think he was gonna like massively construct cheap, affordable housing and put them in there in a month or two?
If your definition of affordable housing is like tents in the middle of the desert or something, like far away from civilian populations, you know what I mean? Like and he said he would deploy the National Guard. He wasn't even messing around.
Bingo. It's the governor's responsibility. The buck of homelessness stops with the governor. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. On day one in office as governor, I'm going to declare a state of emergency, and we will deploy the National Guard everywhere there are homeless people in California. And guess what we're going to do? For the first 30 days, we are going to provide 3 meals a day, clothing, and safety and security for those who are homeless and the public who walk by and vacation in these areas. So yeah, that means we're going to have the National Guard deployed throughout our state, anywhere there are homeless folks, for the first 30 days of my administration.
Yeah, I don't need 19-year-olds out there in the National Guard confronting the homeless population in Venice, California. So total disaster. That was our best bet as a Democrat. And surprisingly, the best choice would have been a Republican. This is the closest I've ever come to voting for a Republican. And I can't vote for Republicans. But the LA Times editorial board said that hold your nose and vote for this guy named Kevin Faulconer, who's a former mayor of San Diego. Pretty moderate, pro-vaccine, pro-environmental issues, stuff like that.
It's really fucking sad that like pro-vaccine is where the bar's at right now. Jesus Christ. But
well, this is still Trump's Republican Party.
Yeah, somehow it still is. Do you think he's going to run in a couple years?
I don't think he's going to run. He's a loser. Biden whooped him hard. He got booed at a recent rally.
And you know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. You got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine. If it doesn't work, you'll be the first to know, okay? I'll call up Alabama and say, hey, you know what? But it is working.
For telling people to get the vaccine. So yeah. So he's out of touch with his own party. I hope he runs because that's a guaranteed victory for us right there.
I don't know, man. I think it probably would be, but I'm not going to make any predictions. My only prediction that I would ever say is I really don't. For a long time, I've said I don't think he'll run again. Just because he'll be so old and it's like so much work and everything. But maybe he would. Who knows?
Yeah, I just don't know how he gets back into favor because right now he's slowly falling out of favor, and the midterms are really going to be the deciding factor because he's already endorsed some lunatics to take on incumbent Republicans like Herschel Walker in Georgia. Have you heard about this guy, football player?
Nope, I haven't followed this like at all. So.
Well, tell me if any of this is boring, but our guy Raphael Warnock has to run for re-election, and Trump has endorsed this guy named Herschel Walker, who's an old football pro.
The former president is endorsing Herschel Walker in the U.S. Senate race.
He claims that he has multiple personality disorder, and that's what causes him to have some violent incidents in the past, like pulling a gun on his ex. And he's as Trumpy as it can get. So that's who our opponent will probably be against Raphael.
Okay, interesting. Hold on, I'm losing my mind. Oh, wait. Was it because it was a special election in Georgia, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Because I thought senators serve for longer than 2 years, so I didn't know why these guys were running again. But it's because of it was special elections. Yeah, right?
Yeah, John Ossoff doesn't have to run again, but Raphael Warnock does.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought I knew nothing, and I was like, wait, do senators really run every 2 years? I got really confused. But okay, I understand. Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
No, you're good.
That's our toughest race next year in the midterms for sure.
Do you I haven't like geared up for this at all. What does the map look like for Democrats in this like midterm season? Is it pretty rough or?
Well, for the Senate, I'd say it looks pretty good, though. Historically, the party that is not in power in the White House tends to gain seats in the House in the first midterms after a president wins. So,
yeah, generally. Yeah.
But also, we should have lost those two races in Georgia, right? Historically, like that was a perfect clapback for the Republicans, but they failed to deliver. So it's looking okay. I'll tell you why. So in Pennsylvania, a state that Biden won, we've got a Republican incumbent, Pat Toomey, who's not running for re-election. So you could argue that we could pick that seat up. We've got some interesting candidates out there. Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, the incumbent Republican, who's a total Trump dude, is maybe not running for re-election. Biden won that state as well. So, you know, there's a chance for 1 or 2 seat pickup, which would be amazing.
I feel like it's going to be so important before the midterms if we can get this fucking infrastructure bill done. Is it going to happen?
Yeah. Oh, it's going to happen. I don't know what the figure's going to be, but nobody's going to pass up this opportunity. It's not going to happen again.
Okay. I hope it does, because I keep hearing all these back and forths. Like, does Manchin really want, like, dude, work requirements are such a, like, I like the concept, I guess, but it's such a loser implementation. Like, work requirements are such a shit way thing to tie to, like, anything.
Well, you got to recall, people have to remember that, first of all, we're very happy to have Manchin. If he was a Republican, we wouldn't have the Senate.
No, yeah, of course, I understand that, but
and I know you're on board with that. But this is a state that is very red. It was called the second that the polls closed in West Virginia for Trump. But I you know, as far as the details of what's going to happen with the human infrastructure bill, the 3.5 trillion, I don't know if it really matters. Like Manchin is saying he supports 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion. In the end, I feel like Pelosi, Schumer, Biden, they all know, Bernie as well, they all know where Manchin's going to land on this stuff. So that it's not like they're surprised or something. And hell, $2 trillion worth of human infrastructure plus the bipartisan infrastructure bill, 1.2,
would still be
a lot
really
of money.
Sick. No, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot better than 0 trillion.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Or 1 trillion in like tax cuts that are kind of like disproportionately spread out to wealthier people. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about raising tax rates here. So Manchin supports raising the corporate tax rate from around 20 to 25, 26. Trump lowered it in 2017. He probably supports raising the top earner tax rate to like 39.6. So, you know, there's some good stuff happening, and Manchin is in the lead. Have you been following his voting rights stuff at all?
No, not at all.
I think this is actually the more fascinating story here. So Democrats have been quietly in the background working on this Voting Rights Act. It's important to them, right? And this is the one where Manchin came up with this compromise to have national voter ID, which was like the Republicans' wet dream. Voter ID nationwide, awesome.
Well,
but for the Democrats, what's that?
I was gonna say, like, I think that if you have like a fierce debate with someone over voter ID, I will usually cede it immediately, and I'll say voter ID is fine. I think that we can have a voter ID. It just should be provided like absolutely free to any American that needs one, and then boom. But like, if because if the Republican balks at that, then you know that there's something else going on besides the voter ID thing. You know? Is that part of Manchin's proposal, or what's? Yeah,
it is.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
That's his compromise that he came up with. So he's willing to give that, and it's not very strict. I think you can show like a utility bill or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember what the details are, but we would get some pretty big stuff on our end, like automatic nationwide voter registration. That would be huge. In Vermont, they have that, and they have 96% voter registration, and so that would be pretty awesome. So they've been working on this in the background, and it sounds like they're getting really close to having all 50 Democrats on board in the Senate. And then it's going to be up to Joe Manchin to go sell his bill to the Republicans. He's going to fall flat because none of those guys are interested. That's radioactive voting rights to those guys.
It's really crazy to me that it's just accepted that like whatever we pass is going to be on 50 votes. Like there's not even like it's not even a possibility that like one or two will come. It's not even like a thought. Like that type of partisan unification in the Senate is so unbelievably fucking toxic to me. I can't believe that. The only thing, and I haven't followed specific policies lately because I've been playing video games. The only thing I'm kind of sympathetic to Manchin on, and it was when Manchin was being pretty derisive towards the idea of budget reconciliation, was him saying that like, hey, we need to get more signatures on this instead of trying to, like, I am sympathetic towards that position. I don't know how possible it is because our Senate cannot go on like this. This is unreal. This is not acceptable. Like, I understand maybe just coming off the back of the Trump shit, sure, but like, we can't be doing every single fucking piece of legislation in the future, like, strictly on party lines. That's unfucking believable. It's unreal. It's so ineffective.
I agree 100%. We pay these people to go and work this shit out. We don't need to sit here and have it trickle down to us and divide all of us. You know, it is ridiculous. And that's why Joe Biden is one of the only people talking about bipartisanship. Well, Joe Biden, Joe Manchin, and Kyrsten Sinema. These are the people who are saying, dude, this is bigger than us. We need to bring our nation together. The only way we do this is working through bipartisanship. That's why the bipartisan infrastructure bill is such a big deal.
Yeah.
You know?
How many
19 Republicans?
Okay.
19, including Mitch McConnell.
That's cool
Huge.
if that is the case, right? Because hopefully the people that break will be the first, like, people that are like leaving the Trump sphere of influence. What you said earlier is so true and very important, and I don't know how many people are noticing that still, is that you have this, like, the specter of Trump still hangs over the Republican Party because so many Republicans themselves are like Trump, like, loyalists. And we need to break away from that on the Republican side. Like that needs to come to an end. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I get a lot of pushback on this, but we need a viable partner on the other side to deal with. They represent a lot of people, and they've got a cancer inside of them right now that is really spreading misinformation, keeping them from getting vaccines, stuff like that. And they need our help to get rid of that. So when these Republicans do something good, like vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill, I'm the first to stand out there and say, good job. Doesn't give them a pass on everything else, but in this moment, good job.
Yeah.
And it's a national security issue too, bipartisanship. This is what Kyrsten Sinema was saying in her op-ed that she wrote about it. Why she doesn't support budget reconciliation, like just for everything, or getting rid of the filibuster too. We've got to prove to the world that this experiment works. And if we can't get along here, then why would the rest of the world do that? Because authoritarianism can get stuff done too.
Yeah. And I get a lot of flack from my community because I'll never win this, or I'll never have anybody left-leaning agree with me on this, but I like the concept of the filibuster. I actually really do. I don't like the concept that every single thing that goes through Congress has to be done exactly on party lines and fuck the other side, because it's so unbelievably fucking toxic. Like, it might be that for some legislation, you have to wheel and deal, you have to negotiate a little bit to get those 60 votes, to get a few votes from the other side. I think that's good, but like, with the amount of partisanship that exists right now, it is just everybody's in lockstep with each other, and it is like impossible to do so, which is so bad. It has to stop. It has to change. Like, geez.
Yeah, and you know, that's why I didn't vote for Joe Biden in the primary. I voted for Bernie. But as soon as Biden or Bernie wasn't viable anymore, I got on board with Biden in like a week or two at the most. And I really think Biden can be a consequential president because of this, pulling us back from the brink of being at each other's throats and pushing for bipartisanship. There is a world in which we can get some Republicans on board for the voting rights bill. Maybe the national voter ID is enough to swing them over. I doubt it, but who knows? But somebody's got to break the logjam. I'm with you. This is no way to live. This is crazy.
The only thing that worries me from like a rhetorical perspective, I think it's good in that we need to do it, but I wonder how the vaccine mandates are going to play out.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm having a lot of fun here because now we've got a class of people who are the vaccinated, and we're pissed off. We've had enough of hand holding. It's time to take the binky out of the other guys' mouths and get the vaccine. But Joe Biden did something really interesting here with his 100 employee plus companies that need to have vaccines or whatever that's going to come through OSHA. You can get a test every week if you don't want to get the vaccine. Nobody's making you get a vaccine.
Is the test going to be free though?
No.
That's the important part, because realistically, I think those tests are anywhere from anywhere from $40 to $300 depending on how quick you want the results, right? I don't know what they are in other states or whatever, but so you're effectively forced to do it. You're paying like a tax not to, right?
Yeah, I think the tests are like around $30, but he is working on that. I think he invoked the Defense Production Act or whatever it's called in order to get more tests made and stuff. Because we all should have tests at home. Like I should have like 5 tests that I can use anytime right now in case I feel under the weather, right? Like that would improve our conditions here a lot.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. The rhetoric around it is really interesting. And I'll say this, Joe Biden's going to take a huge hit in the short term for this, because it's not a popular thing to put out these vaccine mandates. And it gives Republican governors cover to say, well, now everybody's got to get it. It's not my fault. This is tyranny. You're already seeing people do that in like Mississippi, the governor there saying this is tyranny, but you guys, now you got to get it because it's coming from OSHA, you know? So he's doing it for all of us, though. It's for our economy, just like the Afghanistan pullout. Whoever did that was going to take a hit politically. And Joe Biden was willing to do that. I think people forget by this time next year when the midterms come around. But, we've got some Supreme Court rulings that'll distract people anyways. But I'm very proud of Joe Biden for taking the risk on these things. It was time for a vaccine mandate. It's not even really a mandate, really. Like, if you don't want to get the vaccine, you can get a job somewhere else. Go work at a small business.
I mean, I would say that's really dumb, but I mean, Republicans have been using that type of rhetoric for for years, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just combating the blanket statement of it's a mandate. Well, it's not really a mandate, but and we'll see what OSHA comes up with in the end. Anyway, it's going to take them a couple weeks to write it. But it's a huge grab of power by the executive branch too.
Is it? I don't know what the history is for mandates for vaccines and stuff, or like polio and all that shit.
Well, to come from the Department of Labor and from OSHA to issue a mandate like this is pretty big. It's always come on the state level in the past. We do it for schools and stuff like that. But there is Supreme Court precedent going back to 1905, I believe it is, where the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts, they just wanted all their citizens to get a vaccine for polio. I think it was polio. And one guy refused, and he got a fine, and the Supreme Court ultimately ruled in favor of Massachusetts. That sucks for you, dude. Got to get it. And that was just for like every citizen having to get it. It wasn't a work-related thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I think Joe Biden's been doing a pretty good job, though. And of course, in the short term, he's taken a few hits, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I know the Afghanistan stuff was incredibly unpopular. Like, for the first time, he flipped in his user, or not his user rating, his popularity. Like, he went negative. But like you said, who knows how long that'll stay around? Yeah.
I don't think it'll last long at all. The GOP gave us a gift with the Texas abortion bill because everybody was talking about that and they forgot about Afghanistan. I haven't heard anybody say a peep about Afghanistan, even with that nasty drone strike that looks like it hit the wrong target. But yeah, he flipped from +8 ahead in the polls to -0.4, or dropped to like just below 50% approval rating. And that was like, I think, as bad as it's going to get. I don't know. I couldn't imagine what else could happen that could sink Joe Biden in the polls.
Well, not getting any of this big legislation through, I think, would be bad. If we don't actually, if
True.
the infrastructure thing doesn't pass. Although, like, that's because that's become like the cornerstone right now of what Joe's working on, right? Because aside from the coronavirus relief, like, he doesn't have any major legislative achievements yet, right? Would you say? I mean, maybe pulling out of Afghanistan, that's not a legislative achievement, but
Yeah, the American Rescue Plan was the coronavirus relief, as you said. But yeah, the bipartisan infrastructure bill is the first legislative victory he's had with the passing in the Senate. Hasn't passed in the House yet because they haven't voted on it. They want to bring it with the 3.5 trillion one. But yeah, it's going to be really tough to pass anything with the Senate in the way it is right now. And that's why it looks like voting rights may be the next thing. Police reform is still on the table as well. Republicans are working in earnest to try to come to agreement with us on that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't see any scenario where the infrastructure bills don't pass. What the final figure will be, I don't know. But Donald Trump tried for 4 years to pass infrastructure and couldn't get it done. And Joe Biden's so far looking pretty good.
yeah. I debated a Republican once. Sorry, this is random. I debated some conservative a few months ago. I don't even remember who it was. And we were arguing about, like, what do you think Trump has done? And he's like, well, Trump, he got some stuff done with infrastructure. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, he got like part of the wall built. And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, well, that's like a building, right? That's infrastructure. It's a wall. And I'm like, wait, what? That was funny to me. Yeah. Renovating our buildings, our bridges, our roads, our power plants, that's infrastructure.
Do buildings have walls, Destiny?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess it's part of infrastructure then.
If you have a useless if the government has built a useless object that benefits nobody, it doesn't.
How is it
the fact that it's
useless?
built something
just
does not
so
make it
like
infrastructure.
just so real quick, and we might have differences of opinion
So I
on that.
guess
That's
at a
fine. Wait, real
post
quick.
office, if there's a gate in front of the post office, that's not part of the infrastructure.
We might
right?
have differences on what infrastructure means. You can laugh all you want, but I don't think people think that just building a building makes it infrastructure. Usually when you're talking to Americans, especially working class Americans, the infrastructure that they're concerned with, like here in California, the stability of your power grid, or in Texas, people are aware of this, right? That's an infrastructure improvement.
Wow. Yeah, you get some fun characters to debate, that's for sure. I was thinking about starting a show on my channel where I debate 4 conservatives at once, like a chess grandmaster, see if I can do it. Shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, I mean, if you know their talking points, it's all the same shit over and over again, right?
The news isn't real, dude. I told you that. You
So
need to look
that's
at
why-
Operation Mockingbird.
That's why I asked you, like, where do you get your information from? How do you keep up on this stuff? What are your sources?
I have a lot of sources. You go to 4chan at all?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because liberals have really risen now. Like, leftists completely fell off. The progressive movement's basically dead after the Nina Turner stuff.
Yeah, and then going to my world, the online world, everybody kind of like ate themselves alive. Like they're all the amount of infighting that exists between like Brianna and like Jimmy Dore and like even Kalinske and like the Hill people, like all of that shit has been insane. Yeah,
dude, Jimmy Dore. I didn't know about this guy until the recent Medicare for All stuff. His movement has basically taken over Medicare for All. So Medicare for All is just off the table. It's just loons that are on top of that right now, like Jimmy Dore, who says Anthony Fauci lied and the FBI set up these guys in Michigan to get the governor, the kidnapping plot. You know what I mean? Like he's basically saying right-wing talking points at this point. Guess he's trying to get that 1 million YouTube subs or what?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But I read another article, Graham, that said that there were. I might get the numbers off because I don't have the facts in front of me, but there was, say, 8 people in a van going to do the kidnapping, and 5 of those people were FBI.
Would he ever talk to you, do you think?
Most of these leftist guys don't usually like to be challenged. Like, they don't do, like, arguments or debates. Like, Kalinske will never have on somebody to do that. I don't think Dore does. Brianna definitely won't. Like, most of them are usually, like, they just want to do their echo chamber screaming or whatever.
Yeah, they've really fallen from grace, from Bernie being in the lead in the polls to where they're at now. Jesus, the Nina Turner thing was so obvious for weeks too that she was going to lose. I don't know what these guys were thinking.
Yeah, because these people were high on some insane levels of copium, thinking that she was going to like almost breeze through that election, and she got pretty soundly crushed, didn't she?
Yeah, she got beat by
Did
6-7 points or something like that.
Oh, it all comes rushing back to me too. Yeah, people were trying to say it was the fucking Jewish money coming in at the end, and that's why the I don't even remember the other candidate's name, but that's why Turner lost. But when you looked at the election, she fucking outspent her almost 2-1. It was insane. It was like, why do you always have an excuse to lose? Like, progressives always have an excuse to lose. Like, it was either the Jews, or it was the more funding, or it was the attack ads, or it was Trump, or there's like always another reason. It's like they can never accept it. Like, maybe our ideas are just like missing the mark a little bit. Maybe we need to moderate parts of our platform just a little bit, like Jesus.
Totally. There was no chance in hell she was going to win. I think she said evil money.
Because they took evil money. Okay. It took evil money to come in here and do this.
Is why she lost in the end. Like, really weird phrasing right there. But she was famous for saying that picking between Biden and Trump was a half a bowl of excrement and a full bowl of excrement. And that's not the messaging people want to hear right now. People want soldiers for Biden to get stuff done. He's pretty popular, even with his recent dip. Also, the district she was running in was Marsha Fudge, who's now Biden's HUD secretary. And though she is a little progressive and the district's pretty blue, it's not that progressive. And it just was such a misread of what's going on in the Democratic Party. And, we dropped the whole defund the police thing. That's long gone. Now we back the blue now. You know what I mean? We had the committee hearing for the January 6th officers.
I think I'm seeing this more and more. I think the majority of the police stuff in the national conversation and in the online situation is like missing the mark a lot. And this is just, people don't like data. There's two huge parts to this that people don't want to hear. One is that, I've always tried to use data-driven arguments. It's not as bad as people say. It's not every time you get pulled over as a black person, you're not going to get executed by a cop. There's not cops out there like in gangs of vicious bandits looking to ruthlessly assassinate like poor minor. Like, this doesn't happen. Like, people need to chill the fuck out on that. And you saw like a lot of that defund the police shit, like where it passed through in a lot of cities. A lot of that got reverted, like in the past year as like the new city budgets and stuff came up because crime started to go up. Nobody likes crime.
Yeah.
Not, believe it or not, even black people don't like crime, okay? Literally nobody in the U.S. likes crime. And when you roll back a fuck ton of police budgets, that starts to happen more. That's a huge problem. And then the number two, the biggest problem that nobody is ready for is no amount of voting federally is going to do any fucking thing in the world about police. All of that shit is handled on the city level. Your chief of police, the police commissioner, all of that shit comes from like the mayor. Biden is not going to save your district from bad policing. Bernie Sanders couldn't do anything about policing. We can talk about federal inmates if you want, but like federal inmates is like less than 10% of like all the people locked up in the U.S. Like, it's just not, the federal level just isn't as important there when it comes to policing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's some things federal can do, like banning chokeholds nationwide or a registry for bad cops so they can't go from one state to another. But yeah, in the end, it's going to come down to the local government and them working it out. Even in Minneapolis, where this all started, defund the police, and they all pledged to get rid of the police, and they all backed down and nothing changed at all. So very unpopular, defund the police. That's the only reason why we almost lost the House last year. That's single-handedly. And we are just got rid of that messaging. We are posing with cops. We have cops running for office. In Florida, we have Val Demings running for Senate against Marco Rubio. Next year, she's a former police chief of Orlando. I mean, we have completely 180'd, and we're not letting that happen to us again. But yeah, there's no change in big stuff on the federal level with that. But I'm just happy to see that the Democrats have adapted, and I think we could pick up seats even next year. I think it's going to be a lot better than people are anticipating. And I'll tell you what, a bigger indicator of what's going to happen will be the governor's race in Virginia in less than 2 months. Where because Biden won Virginia by less than he won California. So yeah, Gavin Newsom's going to defeat the recall here, and that shows some momentum. But keep an eye on Virginia in November to see what the real deal is. But we're going to win that one, I think, easily too.
You say that with such confidence, but man, dude, we need to tighten up on the polling a bit because anybody that says differently, and I'll be honest, even me, like, we never really expected to win Florida and Texas, But on election night, when those states rolled red as hard as they did, like everybody was gearing up for like oh no, it's happening again. Like everybody was waiting for it. It's like, hold on, like we were predicted to that maybe win Florida by like, or to win Texas by like maybe 1 point, and we lost by like 6 or whatever. I don't remember when. I'd have to go back and look, but some of these were off like 4 or 5 points for a state, and it was like, whew, oh no, like yeah. I hope that we can like iron through that. Although I understand like everything has changed in the past like 5 years for American politics, but geez.
Well, yeah, no, you're right. The polls were off for sure. Polls in California were pretty accurate, surprisingly. But yeah, the polls were definitely off, and it was looking a little scary on election night. We had the red mirage with the same day voting, but Biden's team was very confident. That night, Biden went on the air and said, "We got this, folks. We just got to count them." And
although,
that was awesome.
Trump said the same. Oh, man.
Oh, God. That's such a funny speech. If you go back and watch it now, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But here, let me just tell you why, a couple quick reasons why I think we're going to do better next year. So the Supreme Court is going to help a lot. First of all, they're going to hear arguments this fall and then rule by June of next year on 2 big cases. One is an abortion rights law in Mississippi, 15-week ban compared to 6-week ban in Texas, 15 weeks. They're probably going to rule that that's when a fetus is viable.
Let's be really, really clear. It's not
Sure.
Texas didn't rule for a 6-week ban, right? It's just the suing thing, right?
Yeah, so Texas state passed a law that abortion's illegal basically after 6 weeks. But the Supreme Court did not rule on that. Yeah, right now that's the law of the land in Texas right now.
Oh, so that's actually state law. That's not just the bounty thing, right?
No, that includes the enforcement mechanism of that law is the bounty thing.
Oh, okay.
So they took away the power from police and health people and gave it to the citizens to sue each other to enforce that law.
Yeah, okay.
This is insanity.
And then
so like right now,
is the Mississippi one structured the same way, or is it an actual like?
No.
Yeah.
Mississippi enforcement will be, as far as I recall, by the normal channels by like state actors.
Gotcha.
And that's at 15 weeks instead of 6 weeks compared to Texas. But that's their way of overturning Roe v. Wade, which will probably happen around June next year. Now, that's one issue that really gets Democrats fired up right there is abortion rights. And that's going to happen right for the midterms.
Do we have enough public statements from Supreme Court judges on how they would vote for Roe v. Wade? Is that something where we know that'll happen?
Well, I don't. They're very mum on saying stuff like that. But Trump said he was only going to appoint justices that would overturn Roe v. Wade. And he put 3 of them on there. And the Texas, lack of ruling by the Supreme Court allowing that law to go into effect, they did not rule on the constitutionality of it, but they allowed that law to go into effect, knowing damn well that it was overturning Roe v. Wade. That gives us an indicator that where they're at. So it looks like they've got the votes to do it. They might not. They might surprise us, but it sounds like they're going to drop again. The real question is, when is a fetus viable? And right now it's around 23 weeks or so, and they're going to drop it to 15 if that law goes into effect. The Supreme Court says it's okay.
Gotcha. We don't know. To be clear, so then I don't think we know 100% that like Roe v. Wade is done. It could be the case that the Supreme Court upholds no?
Yeah, no, we don't know 100% for sure. There's been some surprises. I can't think of any right now, but some, people have moved all over the board. Gorsuch and even Amy Coney Barrett. So yeah, we don't know for sure, but it seems like that's the direction we're headed. And in any case, abortion will be dominating the headlines, and that gets us Democrats fired up. And the other thing is voting rights. Right now, voting rights are under attack all over the place, and Democrats are pretty fired up on that too. We saw what happened in Georgia. I think the only reason we won in Georgia, those 2 Senate races, and Biden won, I'd like to think it's because people like us went out there and knocked on doors, which again, I think you did an amazing job with that. But people like Stacey Abrams got mobilized and fought for years and pushed things, and that was because their voting rights were threatened. So those two issues I think will be at the forefront, and Afghanistan will be behind us. You know, hopefully the pandemic will be behind us by then. I know never say never, but
Jesus fuck.
It's crazy to think we're 18 months into this. This is just wild.
Yeah, what a
never ends.
What a horrible world. Yeah.
And that's why Biden's starting to get pissed and saying that, you know, us vaccinated people have rights too, and we have a right to live in a society that doesn't have a communicable disease going around with an easy way to stop it.
Yeah, I'm stuck. Well, I'm not stuck, but I'm in Sweden right now. But when I go back to the U.S., I can't come back here because Sweden banned travel from U.S. citizens. So, yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
How did you get in? Was that ban went down after you got there?
Yeah, I came here a long time ago. Oh.
Wow. Do they have the Delta variant there? What's it like in Sweden right now? Do you have to wear masks everywhere?
No, nobody in Sweden gives a fuck about anything. But the infection rates are very low here, so they've had like a pretty. I think they said they're treating it like a marathon, not a sprint. So they've been pretty passive in terms of how they dealt it. So in the beginning, their death rate was pretty high compared to the other Scandinavian countries. Although some people say it's because it got into nursing homes and fucked shit up. But they haven't had like a huge third or second wave at all. Like right now, the cases are pretty low. So I don't know. It seems to be working okay for them so far.